should he steal it? And Carlsberg goes through and says, well, in the first stage of moral development, when you're very, 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 very small infant, your primary moral thought is, how do I avoid getting punished? I think our economic friends would understand this moral thought. And in that case, the youngest conclusion would be, no, you shouldn't steal the medicine. If stealing the medicine could get you punished. Then the next step in moral thought, which as we go to more the toddler and preteen years, is more of a what gain do I get from this? What do I get from performing this act? Yep. In that case, you should steal the medicine because there's a clear gain from stealing the medicine. Another example might be ignoring punishment, taking the risk to ignore punishment in order to get the cookies out of the cookie jar, or whatever snack a small child desires. And some people are in this moral developmental stage longer than they are in this physical developmental stage. And that goes for all of these, actually. Next comes the teenage years, which I'm sure all of us are aware are the times when you are absolutely right about everything until you're a year older and you realize you were absolutely wrong. And in those years, according to Carlsberg, there's a conventional morality develops. This notion that what people as a whole agree on is right. This sort of conformist idea of morality. So in that case, and by right I mean those rules are inherently right. So in this case, stealing is wrong. People say stealing is wrong. So stealing medicine is wrong. Tragic, yes, but wrong. Because everyone agrees that stealing is wrong. The next step in reasoning comes in the later teens, and it's sort of and into the young 20s. It's the sort of realization that, well, not all rules are good rules. But we want society to function. We don't want to rock the boat too much, because who knows, if we let someone steal something, next thing you know, we have to make exceptions to every rule. Cats and dogs are living together, and society's crumbling apart. And what's even the point? So let's, we'll take the loss. It's a shame your wife dies of this illness, but rather that than total societal collapse, which is the inevitable outcome of you stealing some medicine. But that development moves away from the idea that there are laws that are intrinsically right laws determined by commitment, which is a good sign. After that, as people advance in years, you see, according to Carlsberg, the development of the social contract as an idea. Generally, now the reasoning goes, well, there's a deal with society and a person that we don't steal things. And in exchange for not stealing things, society doesn't let people steal from me. And you could have people within this moral reasoning say, so you can steal the medicine as long as you're okay with other people stealing from you, or you're okay with society not protecting you, or what have you. Whatever, as long as you are willing to throw away the benefits of being in this social contract. Or you would have people say, well, in this case, you shouldn't steal it, but you should try to advocate to prevent this from happening again. The social contract area is where the maneuverability starts to grow because you're not bound by saying these laws always have been right and always will be right. Laws can be changed now if they're appropriate. Sometimes a law that applies in one place isn't good for another place, and so on. And then Carlsberg had a sixth stage, and he could find about 50 people or so for the sixth stage in all his studies. It forms a nice little pyramid of the number of people he was able to find to identify these. And in the sixth stage, he talked about this idea that people who have reached the sixth stage of development do not care about any of the prior 5 stages. So they don't care whether they're punished. They don't care whether they get anything out of it. They don't care whether everyone agrees with them, or whether society falls apart because they're doing something, or whether they're in violation of some social contract signed supposedly by prehistoric man when he first developed property, or any of those other explanations of the social contract that were made up by the Germans and the British. The only care that this person in the sixth stage of morality has is this right or is this wrong? Now, the example Lawrence uses in the case of the sixth person is, you could have two people respond. You could have someone on the sixth stage who agrees with someone way back in the second stage, that stealing is always wrong. But you would probably more likely have people who say, well, saving a life is always good. And I'm saving a life by doing this. So it is good. The example that Carlsberg gives is Immanuel Kant's reasoning, which is, if everyone tried to do this, what would happen? If we agree with results of everyone doing this thing, it's a good thing. And that's where things get a little finicky. But there is this idea of holding to this good, this goodness. Now, Carlsberg had one step further. He theorized about this seventh stage, which would have been great if he was able to find things about it, because that's where religion is supposed to come into the mix. Because obviously religion doesn't show up until you're in your late 80s, I guess, by this time frame. No one makes religious decisions, no. But Carlsberg had a problem. Carlsberg lived in that dark, well, he's dead now, so I have to use that word. In that dark age of philosophy, where philosophy was called psychology, and we had to do experiments to prove philosophical theories, and he just couldn't find anyone that met this mythical seventh stage. Or if he found somebody, he'd find like maybe 2, 3 people, and that wasn't enough, because we're a science now, not a humanities. So we have to pull the rigor and all this other things. Unfortunately, therefore, there's basically no information about what he thought the seventh stage was. But to bring this back to Paul, the sixth stage seemed to be similar to what Paul was saying, because Paul does talk about sort of freedom from this law of sin. And for a while, I thought that meant there was some chemistry explanation in my head that sin was now biologically impossible. I was physically incapable of sinning. Or it meant that no matter what I did, it counted as a good thing. Like, if I stole from someone, it didn't matter that I stole from someone or what I stole, I got into the Christian club. Paul says, no condemnation for me, so I am safe. Well, thinking back, I think Paul might mean something a bit different. It's not that people are now physically incapable of evil, but Paul may be suggesting something so radical as knowing, sort of like those sixth stage people, what is good and what is evil, and therefore being able to choose. And choosing good so determinedly and so wholeheartedly that evil just doesn't come up anymore. The choice to do harmful things or bad, wicked things to people, simply, it's not that we couldn't do it, it's not like it's impossible beyond the realm of physics, but it's impossible in the wonderful realm of psychology. Mentally, people would not choose to be evil. And that, to me, seems like what Paul is saying when he says living in the Spirit. Living in goodness so radically and so deeply that you would never consider doing wickedness again. And that's a tall order, and I'm a college student, not even a college graduate, so I'm going to assure you I have not met it. I'm not even sure if that's what Paul means. Again, I'm a college student. If I say anything with certainty, it is almost required that someone tell me I am wrong. There needs to be a little asterisk, I need a verbal little marker that says, if incorrect, inform immediately, or will believe his truth till the day he dies. Or until I graduate college, whichever comes first. But it is what I think, right now, what I think Paul means. And we're out of time. Quiz is canceled. Well, I'm sure several of you have very well thought out answers that you would love to tell me. I'm sure this is great news for some of you, but horrible news for others. Don't worry, there'll be a retake every moment of every second of every day of your entire rest of your life. I'm sure you can give a great answer to that. Amen.